Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Consider the following statements. The fort at Masulipatam was built by the French. Chandannagar was the first trading post on the eastern bank of the Hooghly, set up by the Dutch. During the British Raj, Darjeeling's temperate climate led to its development as a hill station for the British residents. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to Chandannagar. Let us try and understand what are these options. When you look into the first option, the fort at Masulipatam was built by the French. This is a wrong statement. Why? Because the fort at Masulipatam was not built by the French, but instead it was the Dutch. The Chandannagar was the first trading post on the eastern bank of the Hooghly, set up by the Dutch. This is wrong because it was set up by the French, which is why both the first option and the second option are wrong, and the third option is right. It was during the British Raj that Darjeeling's temperate climate led to its development as a hill station. So the answer to this would be 3 only. Now let us look at some of the factual data with respect to Chandannagar. At the time of Indian independence from Britain in 1947, Chandannagar along with Mahe, Puducherry, Karaikal and Yanam were the French colonies. In 1757, the British captured Chandannagar from the French after the Battle of Chandannagar. In this battle that took place on 23rd of March 1757, British forces was led by Robert Clive and Admiral Charles Weston bombarded and captured the city. So remember, we have also had the Battle of Chandannagar between the French as well as the British. Chandannagar was under Pondicherry like all other French possessions in India. Then what happens? All the French possessions were with the French during the 1947. After 1947, you had the withdrawal of the British from India, and during this period you also had the French government enter into an agreement with India where plebiscite was conducted, and ultimately all those regions which were under the control of the French were handed over to India. So the French government conducted a plebiscite on 19 June 1949 in which a whopping 97% of the people voted in favor of merger with India. The administration of the city was taken over by the Indian government on 2nd of May 1950. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following pairs. We have the bird sanctuary on one side, the state it is present in on the other side. Ranganatittu Bird Sanctuary, Karnataka, Kolleru Bird Sanctuary, Andhra Pradesh, Karnala Bird Sanctuary, Maharashtra. Which of the above pairs are correctly matched? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Ranganatittu Bird Sanctuary, yes, is in the state of Karnataka. Kolleru Bird Sanctuary is in the state of Andhra Pradesh, and Karnala Bird Sanctuary is in the state of Maharashtra. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to Ranganatittu Bird Sanctuary. The article also makes a reference to Hadinaru Lake. Where is it? It is in Mysuru in Karnataka. The article further makes a mention of number of birds: cattle egret, Eurasian coot, bar-headed goose, barn swallow, as well as little cormorant. Now the assignment for today is you have to read the IUCN status of all these birds and put it on the comment section. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which amongst the following statements is the best description of the Egmont Group? The primary purpose of the group is to help countries develop their national anti-money laundering systems. It is a group that promotes and protects intellectual property. It seeks to protect and conserve the world's oceans and marine wildlife. It is a group of nuclear supplier countries that seeks to contribute to non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. Which of these statements best describe about the Egmont Group? The answer to this is A, which means the primary purpose of this group is to help countries develop their national anti-money laundering systems. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here is speaking about prevention of the Money Laundering Act. Let us try and understand what is this Egmont Group all about. This happens to be an international network. What happens? There are a number of countries. These countries have financial intelligence units. So there is a platform provided called as the Egmont Group where these countries with their financial intelligence units meet on a global platform and ultimately put out their perspective about the government handling the menace of the money laundering. So basically, this Egmont Group is that particular forum where the financial intelligence units from around the world meet each other, improve the support to their respective governments in the fight against money laundering, terror financing, and other financial crimes as well. So these people come together, exchange the information, provide intelligence inputs, and ultimately take a measure to resolve all the crisis that is haunting the respective country. So remember, the Egmont Group is one of the groups where the prime purpose is to help countries develop their national anti-money laundering systems. Now let's look into the next practice question. Modified elephant recently seen in news is a or an advanced persistent threat group that has been targeting activists, journalists, lawyers and others in India. Adult-sized humanoid that is reportedly capable of face and object detection, speech recognition and generation, GPS collar that helps scientists track the animal movements in real time once they are released into their new habitat, remote access Trojan focused on password stealing, key logging and remote control capabilities. What is this modified elephant? Basically, this is nothing but an advanced persistent threat group, nothing but a hacking group that has been targeting activists, journalists, lawyers and others in India. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a mention of the modified elephant. So modified elephant are nothing but a hacking group where they were able to place incriminating evidence in the systems in the phones of Indian lawyers, journalists, human rights activists, human rights defenders, academicians as well as advocates. How were they able to do it? These are the hacking group people. They were able to plant evidence into the personal computers of such activists, and ultimately when police started searching for the files, they were able to get evidences from these people in spite of they not using such files or the documents. So basically it typically weaponizes malicious Microsoft Office files to deliver malware to their targets. How does it work? They would send an email to that particular person whom they want to target. The minute this particular person clicks on this email, there would be a Trojan or a virus that takes up into their system, and as a result the hackers get access into it and they would be able to put in all the information or incriminating evidences that they wish to do it. In the past, this hacking group was able to use malware such as the Netwire, which happens to be a remote access Trojan. They've also installed Dark Comet as well, which happens to be another malware as well. So once this malware enters the system or the phone of that individual, they would get access to it and they would place the incriminating evidence into the phones and laptops of the human rights activists. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. The effect of devaluation of a currency is that it necessarily improves the competitiveness of the domestic exports in the foreign markets, increase the foreign value of domestic currency, improves the trade balance. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is one only. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2021. So whenever there is a devaluation, what would happen? There would be a fall in the value of the currency. This ultimately means that there will be increase of the domestic exports. The first statement is right and the second statement is wrong. Why? Because it is not the increase but there is a decrease of the foreign value of the domestic currency, and at the same time it does not improve the trade balance as well. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is doxing. What is this doxing? Let's assume for a moment there is an individual. This individual has a lot of data on couple of online platforms, and at the same time this individual also has some of the private data as well. So what would a hacker do? Or it might be any other person as well. This person or the hacker may steal this information or some of the private images, or it can also be the videos, or it can be the address, phone numbers, email ID, so on and so forth of this particular individual, and ultimately put up on an open platform. It might be Facebook or on Instagram. So doxing is nothing but taking and collecting the information of an individual which are private in nature and pushing it on a public platform and thereby threatening another individual is what is called as doxing. So doxing basically happens without a victim's consent, and ultimately there is an intention to expose information which are completely of private in nature. What do we understand by doxing? Basically, we have something called as the documents. These documents are called by docs, that is nothing but DOCS, but if you're pronouncing this, it can also be docs as well. So docs is nothing but dropping the documents of this particular person on a public forum. So dropping docs refers to collecting the personal documents or information and publishing them online. What is the purpose of doxing? Whenever there is a person who is engaging in doxing, his intention is to malign the image of another person. Basically, it will harass that particular person publicly, dig up all the data of that particular person, expose that particular person, and ultimately the reputation of this individual will fall at stake. So number of people whose lives have been lost as well. There have been viral campaigns as well, which were ultimately private, have now been leaked into a public forum. So the doxing can result in emotional stress, lot of anxiety, loss of employment in number of situations. It can even lead to physical harm, committing of suicides, and ultimately that person individual who's gone through doxing may also end his life because of the embarrassment faced by leak of the private information. So because of this, we have the recommendations made on the Meta board. What is this information? Basically, if there is a particular person who feels that there is doxing that has happened where some of the private information has been revealed on the public forum, so this should be reported to Meta, and ultimately quick and effective mechanism will be put in place so that removal of such private information can be taken up by Meta board. It also highlights that there needs to be a specific mode of communication where the victims would be able to communicate and speak up to Meta, and ultimately all the issues are sorted out between that individual as well as Meta as a platform. This would allow the victim to explain what is that they are going through, what is that they are facing from another harasser, and ultimately this illegally posted content can be removed from the Meta platform. So the board has clearly gone on to say that they want to prioritize the very action plan where the illegal content, if posted online, is ultimately deleted so that these individuals do not have to go through such a trauma. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.